I should never be the textbook version of who I need to be. We need to know that we have possibilities of doing in a different way. We don't always have to do it the way it has always been done.
When you experience a small tragedy, you think that that's it. Put out positivity to the universe because all of us have so much potential for life. That's why we're here.
Towards that experience is building to something much more great. That experience is molding you to something way far much more ahead.
I do believe that people are inherently good. I think the one thing is that people need to hold space for other people. And if you know the meaning of love, you need to be able to love unconditionally.
Look, we're human. There's always going to be obstacles. The difference is how you handle these obstacles. Don't go through the pain, grow through the pain.
Being confident in your own skin, remind yourself that you're enough. The minute you remind yourself that you're enough, you can get through anything.
Your current situation is not always your permanent situation. It can always be better, but it can always be worse. Other people have it worse than you. Do what you do, but you've got, that's for sure.
I would think to listeners, be consistent.
To the point where that experience is enjoyable, you're gonna get hooked.
Yeah, I agree.
Forever.
You're all champions.
It's got to be that little voice within you telling you have to listen. Your pain is profitable.
Let's boost creativity. Let's boost this curiosity in our species, and let's even go farther. Be the change that you want to see in the world.
So be the best version of yourself always. Thanks guys for listening. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone that's listening. Thanks again guys for listening to our show. Thanks for listening. Thank you once again. We really appreciate it. Hello everyone and welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. I have a journey. You have a journey. But how many of us actually share our journeys to help others through life? There's so many people that can resonate with our beautiful journeys and so many people that can benefit from it, but we really don't share it with them. My name is Nolan Pillay and I'm your host for today. And it's my privilege to have George Brooks on as my guest today. So George has been living with mental illness since age 7. He has lived through abuse, weight loss surgery, childhood obesity, and many health issues as well, including addiction, divorce trauma, and custody battles as well. He's currently raising a son also with mental illness, poverty, and he's also started a nonprofit and much more as a Black man, all while struggling with a couple of serious diagnoses and thriving. He has several business ventures as a mental health advocate. I love that. He's the CEO, he's a life coach, public speaker, writer, producer, and also he lives the challenge of each day. And he counts the strength and wisdom he gains from his journey as a blessing. Now, how many of us actually see this journey through life as a blessing and as a learning? Lots of us tend to just go through that pain and go through that obstacle, but George chooses to grow through it. And that's what makes him such a fantastic person as well. He's learned and experienced a lot, and he's looking forward to sharing and inspiring all of you out here today as well. So welcome, George. Welcome to Inspirational Journeys with Straight Talk with Nolan. It's such a privilege to have you on. Can you share with the audience where you're from? Just a 2-minute, where you're from, what are you up to? And then we can get directly into it.
All right. Well, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I moved to Dallas, Texas about 4 years ago while still in recovery, still very much licking my wounds and things like that, and started a nonprofit. And right now, I am currently back in Memphis, kind of taking some time to get some work done, somewhat on a sabbatical, and just kind of gaining a lot of ground right now. Very positive, getting a lot of exposure, doing what I can to try to help as many people as possible. So that's kind of what I'm up to right currently.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And thanks for sharing that, George. So let's get directly into the questions, right? I was very touched by your story. I've read quite a bit on you as well, and I'd like to know, like, what does mental health look like to you?
What mental health looks like to me is having a balance between um, the management of emotions and how one reacts to certain stimuli in a way that keeps themselves mentally healthy. To me, there are two types of mental illness sort of diasporas. One being situational, whereas we have someone who may not have a diagnosis, who may be going through something, in life and have a crisis, and that in itself is its own mental health entity and experience right there. And the other being where someone where a diagnose an actual disease, an actual illness, and that in itself has its own unique challenges.
Yeah.
So those are the two areas that kind of encompass what mental health looks like to me. Of course, starting there, you can go into things such as coping skills, and it bleeds into addiction and other aspects of life. But in terms of mental health in general, I feel as though it's something that's been underaddressed. It's something that we are just now starting to really look at. We have yet to scratch the surface on it, but we will begin to see how to fix every aspect of our life, from economics to social constructs, and especially in terms of relationships, in terms of family, women, and society.
Wow. I like that you mentioned manage emotions in there as well. So straight up, I'm going to get direct into it, right? So I'm a person that's against putting toxins into my body. And how do you feel about anyone taking medication to help them manage those emotions? Do you think medication is the answer, or do you believe that we can manage this with the proper coping skills and the proper coaching, etc.?
Well, that highly depends on the individual and what their clinicians say. Some people that I've met and some stories that I've heard, they've been successful without or very little medication. Some people need more. It just depends. If you're dealing with more of a situational incident in terms of mental health, you maybe can get away with a little bit less medication because you don't have a diagnosable condition, then you can manage that. But if you have something that's actually diagnosed where it's actually a chemical imbalance, then medication probably will be more what you would need, because you have to address the chemical deficiency or the chemical overload. So it really just depends on the individual, what works best for them. But I will say that to me, in terms of dealing with mental illness and recovery, especially with people with actual diagnosis, with an actual diagnosis, that it needs to be a three-pronged approach. It needs to be therapeutic, it needs to be medicinal, and it needs to be spiritual. And oftentimes we pick one out of the three or none out of the three and wonder why we suffer. So we have to be more proactive and accountable when it comes to our care, whether we choose to use medication, whether we don't, or however we choose to cope with it.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm not saying medication, there's modern medication that really works as well, but there are other ways as well, where natural medication can do as good a job as, a chemical one. But I do understand with the chemical imbalance as well. But with a mixture of spirituality and doing things, when you realize that there is like a problem, when you start working on it, it's going to help you come out from whatever situation you're going through at that time as well.
Right.
I've had some experiences, personal experiences of my own. I've been through suicide, attempted suicide, because I was too focused on what society would think about me. I was too embarrassed. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that, wow, okay, there's certain things that you can fix on your own by just changing your mindset or working on whatever you are going through at that time as well. It will be difficult. Right. No road is easy. It has to be difficult all the time, right?
Right. And that's part of what I was speaking of when I talked about the therapeutic aspect and the spiritual aspect, is that you have to do those things. You have to develop a safe space for you to process. You have to develop meditation, prayer, whatever it takes. And a big part of that is removing yourself from toxic situations and people. So there are several other things that you can do that are more holistic to assist with addressing your mental health issues and keeping yourself healthy.
So what, step one would be would step one be remove yourself from that toxic environment or that toxic relationship or whatever toxic is affecting you at that point?
Well, to me, the first step is really begins with accountability and looking at oneself in the mirror and understanding that you have to change.
Okay. Well said.
You're responsible for yourself, that even though other people may or may not have contributed to the situation that you may find yourself in, that you're the one ultimately responsible for how you react to those situations. That's the first step. Then the second step is exactly what you said, which is removing that toxicity from your existence in any way that you can. Even if it means separating yourself from family, which is what you have to do. Especially in the Black culture, there is a phenomenon of staying in situations or sticking with family, no matter what. But I don't care if it's your mother, or I don't care if it's Big Mama, I don't care if it's your brother or even your own child. If they're toxic, you need to get away from them. Yeah. Because at that point, they're keeping you sick and the relationship isn't healthy anyway, which benefits no one. So you have to be ready to walk away from relationships and toxic situations. And you'll find that as you enter recovery and as you do recover, that you will lose a lot of relationships anyway, because you change. Absolutely. So that's something that you have to be prepared for anyway. Yes. So step one is accepting that accountability and really taking that hard look at yourself and what you can be doing to improve your own mental situation, especially if you're dealing with a dual diagnosis such as addiction. Mm-hmm. And the second is starting to remove the components that are keeping you sick, whether it be people, places, environments. I've moved 500 miles away from where I live in order to escape a lot of that. And it was the best move I ever made. So you have to fight for yourself. You can't do it for your mom. You can't do it for your kids. You can't do it for your spouse because people will let you down. You have to do it for yourself. No, absolutely. So to all the listeners out there, such a valid point that George actually made as well. Step one has to be taking accountability. When you accept that there is something wrong, take responsibility for it. Acknowledge it. You cannot blame whatever you are going through on anyone else. Take accountability and take the necessary steps to start working on yourself. And it can be done. There's millions or maybe billions of people out there that have been through similar situations and they've come out from it by just taking accountability for themselves and, of course, removing yourself from the toxic environment. I want to speak a bit more about the toxic environment, especially around the Black community and how mental health affects the Black community. Because me being a person of color as well, right? I know that a lot of people have this notion that they can't get out from a toxic environment because they're going to lose, they're not going to have that finances to back them up. They're not going to have a place to stay. You know, they feel too comfortable and it's all about the security. They feel more secure and they'll put themselves into this toxic environment and stay there because of security, but they go through so much of crap in this process. Right. Well, the thing is to truly recover and have any real life, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And especially in the Black community, we keep a lot of secrets in our family. We don't address issues. We sweep them under the rug until they become to where they manifest themselves in terms of fractured families, crime, addiction, abuse. So they still come out. They just bleed out in other ways. Yeah. And, you know, I think a lot of that comes from worrying too much about society, from things as a Black man in America, things that were indoctrinated into us back into slavery, back in segregation. Those things still play, I think, a big role into how we address our mental illness and why we continue not to address it. So we have a long way to go. Like I said, I think the pandemic, in a way, exposed a lot of America's mental health issues and some things in the background that are coming to the forefront. But yet we still have yet to scratch the surface. We still have a long way to go. And I deal with the Black culture because me being a Black man, I have to take care of home first before I can deal with other people. It's just, you know, the one thing that is somewhat discouraging is the lack of engagement from other people in my community. One obvious way of looking at it is in terms of support. I go out, I speak, I do as much as I can, but there's not much engagement. People aren't really more interested. Some celebrity who does not know they exist is doing than what's going on in their communities. And I can honestly say I'm beginning to feel as though some people just won't won't take notice until it affects home, until it's their child, until it's their mother. And unfortunately, that's the way the world works. But I'm just finding that people are more concerned with celebrities and nonsense and idiocy and negativity than actually really doing something that's going to, one, enrich them economically, improve their community, and make them happy and make them sound. So it's just matters of priorities and people being immature and not realizing what's really, really important and what's really behind what the things they complain about.
Yeah.
So.
No, I totally agree with you, and I like that you even mentioned a lot of it comes from where we come from, right? Because I come from the condition. So in South Africa, I come from apartheid South Africa, so there were a lot of conditioning, and I think especially us as Black people, we need to realize that whatever we've been through, it was not our fault. It really wasn't. It wasn't our fault. So we can't stay stuck in that self-pity mindset. We need to realize that, okay, we need to start working on ourselves now and become better people. And like George, for example, goes around advocating, speaking about mental wellness. He's not doing it just for no reason. He's doing it because he cares. He really does care because he wants you to live a better life as well. He's been there. He's lived this life. So who better to hear from rather than a person that really experienced this as well? And I totally get it with celebrities, and we're going to talk a little about this as well, because we'll talk about social media in a bit, because it's a topic that we need to address as well. But I think coming from Black communities, we need to understand that, yes, we do need help. And I'm not saying that if you say that you need help, if you pick your hand up and say, I need help, that there's something wrong with you. No, there's nothing at all. There's just things that we have gone through in a very early ages of our life that we need to work on. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in working on yourself. Self-care in this century should be your number one priority, right?
Right. And I think one big point is that we mental illness, sometimes we don't emphasize the word health enough. We don't treat it as though it's an actual health issue. I am a type 1 diabetic. If I don't take my insulin, if I don't eat right, I'll be sick. It's no different in me managing my mental illness. If I don't follow my clinicians, if I don't take my meds, I won't be well. And so it's we treat it as though it's something other than what it is, which is a health crisis.
Yeah.
Many that are dealing with mental illnesses that are untreated end up incarcerated. That's why we fight recidivism. Many end up being in poverty because when you're labeled disabled because of a mental illness, there's already a strong stigma against you that only compounds it. And trying to live on Social Security or benefits pretty much relegates you to poverty, relegates you to being taken advantage of and abuse. So there's so many layers to this onion that we have to try to peel because it's killing us. Look at crime in the streets. In the neighborhood that I'm in right now, in the community that I'm in, is rampant. And we can tie not it entirely to mental illness, but a great part of it to mental illness, from the way these people are being raised, to the way they're being indoctrinated, to the way that they're carrying things out. So, I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, which I am, but mental illness and mental health is key to everything.
Yeah.
It all starts there. It all starts with self. It all starts with individuals. And me as a Black American man, I've seen how it affects us. I've seen how it affects my brothers. And I don't do this out of anything other than concern, because I've been there. I've been, in recovery. I will always be in recovery. I've been off medication. I've been in the throes of addiction. I've been where I was in the middle of a custody battle at rock bottom. I've been all those places, so I know what that feels like. So I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. That's why I do what I do. And I feel like through spreading awareness, that's the only way we can stop these situations, because we have people not living their best life that way.
Yeah.
Just because you have a mental illness does not mean that you cannot work. Does not mean that you can't live a good life. Does not mean that you can't have a successful marriage. Does not mean you can't raise a family. Does not mean that you can't live as full and as fulfilling a life as anyone out here. You just have to have the tools. And not only is that applicable to those of us with a mental illness, Those same principles apply to people without a mental illness.
Yeah.
So once we learn those lessons, we'll find our communities improve and our situation as a diaspora improve, and then we can help the world in general.
Yeah, very well said. Totally agree with you on that as well. And, you know, just to put a spin on it as well, a lot of people would like to see us in this mental illness situation as well, right? They don't want us to improve. So we also need to realize that we need to improve for us and for our families as well, right? Because
it becomes a matter of following the money, because there's money, there's profitability in misery.
correct.
There's not much money in cures, but there's plenty of money in treatments. Look at our prison system. It's basically using humans as inventory, as cattle. So, you know, they could probably absolve a lot more problems in this country and in this world if there wasn't such a strong revenue stream attached to it. And mental illness is no different. There could be some more definitive treatments. There could be something that's more long lasting or something more substantive. But, you know, pharmaceutical companies make money. Therapists, you know, not saying that therapists are in any way opportunists, but they make money. So anything that has a revenue stream is going to be perpetuated, good or bad. So that's just a simple fact of it. But, you know, the thing is, like I said, it all to that accountability, you can better navigate your path to recovery and maybe avoid some of those pitfalls and some of those things that actually keep you sick.
Yeah. No, yes. Oh, true. We saw it with COVID as well, right? I mean, how many vaccines? It made the pharmaceutical companies extremely rich for something that, okay, that's a different topipic, but, you know, it had an effect on a lot of people's mental status as well, right? That's why I actually mentioned it. It really crucified people in a big way. And
yeah, the pandemic affected people's mental health in a big way. I think, you know, both good and bad. And what I mean by good is that anytime people lost their lives, that's a tragedy. So I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. But I think one thing is that it made people aware of the fact that mental illness is real, because if you have people who didn't believe in it or were skeptical toward it, they actually felt the effects of that cabin fever. They actually felt the effects of the economic stress, and it took a toll on them. It made it aware. It brought it to the forefront. One other thing, I think in some ways it's sort of even the playing field in a lot of areas that divided us in this country, because no matter what your economic status was, no matter, you know, where you came from, who you were, what color of your skin, the pandemic affected everyone.
Yeah.
But we see just divisiveness in the country now because people profit off of it. The news media. I don't watch the news. I think it's trash. I don't follow celebrities. I think it's nonsense. But people profit. I'm aware of it, but I don't follow it. But there's profitability and divisiveness.
Yeah.
There's great money to be made in dissent and people being malcontents. So, you know, as long as that, and that has always been the case and always will be, there will always be something present, but you can control how much you feed into that and to how much of that media and attitude and influence you consume. And that becomes a matter of protecting your own mental health by staying away from those things, or at least keeping them in perspective.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, even with the news as well. I don't watch TV. The only TV I watch is sport, right? Because most of the time, they're just promoting all the negative crap that's out there as well. I mean, with them televising about COVID, it put so much of fear into people. It put people in a bad state. And I like the fact that you said COVID did not discriminate against your race, religion, sex, color, whatever it was. It took you out irrespective. So, you know, it's sad to say it took people out, but it's a fact of life. Money never play a part in it. So what we need to be doing is we need to be better using the funds that we have and contributing it towards issues like mental wellness. Because if you look at this century that we are in now, there's so much of mental wellness problems that we are having. And if governments, for example, really valued people or valued humans, then we would be doing something much more about this, and you'd get people like George and myself to go out there and really make an impact, because we're doing this on our own. 100% of the time, we're doing it on our own. We're doing it because we care, but we want people to come out there and start working with us as well, so we can create a bigger message and help people out there. I mean, social media, we spoke about the news media, but social media is another factor, right? Do you think it's good or bad for mental health? And I'll share my thoughts after you share yours as well.
This is I typically sum up my feelings for social media like this. It's like fire. It can warm your house, it can cook your food, but it can also destroy everything that you own. And you can't blame social media because you dictate your own algorithm. You control what you look at. You control how much of it you look at. So if you're sitting up here and you're consuming junk all day, that's what you're going to get out. That's going to be your outlook. That's going to be your existence. That's going to be your reality. But if you're trying to find more positive things to engage in and more positive things to think about and surround yourself with, you're going to find that's going to be more so of what your life will consist of. So, I'm not telling people, they necessarily have to go all Mary Poppins in terms of the social media, because everyone likes a little junk food in their diet. But I'm saying, if you begin to feel as though social media is stressing you, then take a break for your own mental health, because it can take an issue that's not even on your mind and just infiltrate it with all kinds of paranoia, all kinds of issues. If you're already a person that's dealing with something and you're just inundated with negative messages on social media, trolls, celebrity gossip, that this celebrity worship is just really just kind of sickening. Yeah. That's a lot of what I'm feeling like social media is revolving around, and we just need to use it wisely. We need to use it a lot more with a lot more forethought. It's a tool, and be careful of what we consume. Social media is the same thing we put in our refrigerator. You control what goes in there, so you control what you get out of it.
Absolutely.
It as a whole is not evil, or bad, but it just depends on what you do with it. Yeah. So I try to use it more so for networking and engagement, things like that. I've met a lot of wonderful people on there, so I try to keep it more positive, and I found that's been more of my experience with it.
Yes, exactly that. You keep it positive, then it becomes a good tool to use. Imagine, and I mean, we both know this as well, right? If you just share like a negative video or something, it will spread like wildfire, and you'll get billions or millions of people watching it. But when we share anything positive, you don't get so much of attention from it. It's like people just thrive on the negativity out there as well. So my other issue with social media is it's actually forcing people. And you mentioned the celebrity status or the celebrity looks and stuff like that. If you look at Instagram, for example, with this filter system, people are becoming somebody they're not, because they know they can manipulate the way they look. They're actually going out there and using these tools. And it's such a dangerous game. And I tell you why. Let's say, for example, I meet somebody on social media and this person was looking like really gorgeous, etc. And we took it to them, we meet for coffee. And now we meet for coffee and it's a totally different person. Immediately that's going to lead into conflict, might lead into some violence as well. So like George mentioned, it's what we do with social media that pushes us on the wrong path. If we are using social media for the wrong things, like making ourselves look good, making ourselves look like celebs all the time and stuff, it's not going to serve you well. Be happy with who you are. You are unique. Every single one of us are unique. We have unique DNAs. God made us the way because this is the way that we are chosen to be. Be happy for who you are. Don't try and be somebody you're not, because you will get yourself into trouble at a later stage. And don't use social media for likes or comments or followers. That's not important. That means nothing, absolutely nothing. Right. What are your thoughts on that topic, George, on what I mentioned?
You are 1,000% right on that. People, I think you remember when we talked about accountability as far as the first step of dealing with mental health issues, in that step, what's encompassed is that is learning who you really are. Once you learn who you are, once you get comfortable in your own skin, then a lot of the BS kind of falls aside. So you don't find yourself on social media having to, like with our women, they feel like they have to show shots of their butt and all that to be validated. And that's really wrong, because I'm not gonna say that's wrong. If that's what you want to do, more power to you. but it really says more about your insecurity than anything else. So that lets me know that person didn't take the time to find out who they are and feel confident in themselves to not have to exploit themselves like that. Guys that carry themselves online in a certain way, insecurity comes out because they didn't take that time to be accountable and deal with who they are. We're always trying to live to a certain image that's 9 times out of 10 manufactured anyway. We're being sold to, we're being marketed to. Everything that we consume is being marketed and made up for us to buy and eat. It's not necessarily meant to feed us. Let me put it this way. It's not meant to nourish us. It's just meant to feed us.
Yeah.
So when you take something in, you want to be nourished and not just fed. And that goes with social media as well.
No, absolutely. It's so dangerous. It's such a dangerous world. It can lead to so many different things. And we know this. And you know what? The sad part is a lot of the youngsters are taking into this, using social media the wrong way. And that's why we have child trafficking increasing. So many different rapes are happening out there. And of course, with all of this happening out there, it's not gonna help the person's mental attitude or mental wellness. It's gonna deteriorate it even more as well. So, we open ourselves up for a lot of issues with social media. And again, it's back to accountability, like you rightfully said, George, right? If we are accountable for ourselves, we're not gonna throw ourselves out there just for likes and comments. It's not the way to go.
Right. And I understand the challenge in that because we are social creatures. We want to be accepted. We want to be part of something, but you have to be careful what you sign up to be a part of.
Indeed.
And there are repercussions for that. It's especially with social media because it never goes away.
True. And yeah, exactly. It never goes away, right?
So be careful, especially if you're younger, especially if you find yourself in a bad state. I have to work on this myself sometimes when I get in certain moments, maybe oversharing. Just be careful about that. And, and you can better do that by dealing with your mental health. Like I said, everything that we talk about can be related back to mental health. And I just wish I could get more engagement from my people on that. But you know what? Mental health is only discussed really when a mass shooting occurs or a celebrity does something stupid. That's really the only time Black folks really discuss mental illness or to ridicule it. Not all of us, but a lot of us. So, it's on those of us to try to keep it present, even when it's not popular, even when it's not a sexy topic, because that's what it's going to take to actually affect change.
No, true. And you're right. We should be dealing with it from now and not, like you said, waiting for something major to happen. And then we realize, okay, where did we go wrong? But we know every single day where we're going wrong, but we're not being helped enough to help others to go out there and make a difference as well. So rather catch it now, especially with our youth. We need to catch this now. We don't want them to be in the mid-adult range and having to go through this at all. We don't want to. We're going to try and fix it now. So I know I don't hear too much about the Kanye West controversy, but what's your thoughts on it? Because I know it's related to our topic as well. What's your thoughts on it, George?
Here's my thing on Kanye West. If I'm lucky, maybe some of this will go viral because I think it's important for me to say. I'm not a fan of Kanye West, not because I don't like him. That's just not my genre of music or anything like that. I'm only really aware of him based off what I hear in passing. But I did watch an interview with him a couple years ago on David Letterman. Okay. Now, I am bipolar 1. That's one of my diagnoses. I am not sure. I have yet to confirm this, but I think I've heard that maybe he was diagnosed as bipolar. So during the interview, he was clearly manic. And I sat and I watched the first couple minutes of the interview, but I could not take my eyes off of it because what I saw was a bipolar man that was manic. I didn't see a celebrity. I didn't see Kanye West. I just saw a sick individual. Not sick in a negative way, not sick as though he was somehow morally bankrupt or anything like that, but someone that could probably use a rest and some medication and some therapy and some time off. Because here's the thing, he sounded exactly like me when I'm sick, when I'm ill, when I'm not well. So I didn't see him as a celebrity. I just saw him as a man that was going through something. And it touched me because I felt the pain because that's me. The way I know he's feeling, the way I'm picking up all the cues and everything, I've been in that same position. So, you know, recently, I think there's some controversy going on with him. And I'll just say this. We view celebrities as not people. We view them as commodities to be traded upon, to be worshipped, which is what we do in this society, worshipped, and things like that. But we have to understand they are real people. And this man may have some issues that he may need to deal with. He may need a rest. He may need a sabbatical. But one thing that's clear to me is that he's surrounded by the wrong people. I feel like he's not taking care of himself. He may not be aware enough to do that. But if we treat our celebrities like this, the people we worship, because here's my thing, some people would say, well, we don't worship celebrities. If we talk about them as much as we do, and we keep them as rich as we do, that's worship. Yeah. Because some people don't give, some people give Kanye West more reverence than they give God. Okay, let's just be real about it. So we do have celebrity worship. But we don't see them as individuals. We don't see them as people. And we ridicule our celebrities sometimes. They're going through something. Now, some of them, a lot of it is personal responsibility. He's responsible for the stuff he's doing. If he's not getting care, he's ultimately responsible for that. But I just want people to keep in mind that's what mental illness can look like when it's untreated. Yeah, you're seeing it, but it's just people don't want to understand it. They'll say, well, it's because he has money. A lot of people have money. That doesn't stop them from having the mental illness. Yeah. A lot of people, celebrities, don't stop them from having the mental illness. So what I want to say is, I'm no way taking up for the man. I don't know the man, never spoke to the man, probably never will speak to the man. But when I saw the interview and when I really looked at it and I thought about it and I looked at how I was in my situation, I saw myself. You could relate. So yeah, I saw myself. Same thing I went through, same tics, same cadence of speech, everything. So I think that leads me to try to empathize a little bit more. Not excuse, not absolve of responsibility, but empathize a little bit more. And that's something that we all need to do with people dealing with mental issues. Not it's just Black people in America, but people all over the world. So if we do that, we'll find things to start to get better, but we have to be accountable and start making the first step and stop thinking things are funny and stop minimizing things. Because when it happens to our kids, then we want to be concerned about it. Then we want to get into outrage. No, deal with it now. Yeah. Deal with it now. Be proactive about it. And maybe we can affect some change and avoid some things happening to our families and loved ones.
Indeed. And the signs will always be there as well. And who best to pick it up besides the people living in that house, right? The parents can see this as well. So parents should really to step up and do something about it. Even with celebs as well. They go through a lot, right? They a lot of pressures and stuff like that as well. That's why we find a whole lot of them will either go on to addiction or become suicidal and stuff. And we've seen it, right? The stats are out there. A lot of them have passed on because of that as well. So nobody knows what they actually go through. But the thing is, again, acknowledge that something is wrong with you. Be accountable for fixing it, because only you can fix it. And it can come out from a lot of things within us, right? You mentioned early on as well, the conditioning where we come from as Black people, we were conditioned growing up. So all of those shadows that are within us, we need to fix it. We need to take responsibility and start working on that so that we can become better human beings. That's all we want to do. We want to become better people. None of us are perfect, and we will never be perfect, right, George? But we are a work in progress.
Right. And I feel like that's what we shall aspire to do, because we aspire to be our best selves. Those that we love prosper.
Yeah, exactly. And we got to set the precedent from now and not just ignore this and think that it's not here. It is here. It's staring us in the face every single day. So George, thank you so much for coming on Inspirational Journeys through life with Straight Talk with Nolan. I'm really grateful that you made the time. Such an important topic that we really need to talk about all the time as well. So I'm grateful for that. Any tips, advice that you'd like to share with the audience and the listeners? I know you spoke a lot about accountability, which is such a key topic as well. What would you like to leave us with?
If you're going through something right now, be accountable. be accountable, reach out to somebody for help. If you're living if you're mired in toxicity, there are several nonprofits. I have a nonprofit, Meta Association. You can reach us at www.metaassociation.org for help, assistance, resources. So Meta Association is my nonprofit. Also, be patient with yourself, please. If you're in treatment, in recovery, be patient. You'll have good days and bad days. You may relapse. Don't think it's the end of the world. Just take your time and be patient. It may, they say with bipolar, it may take 10 years to find a regimen of medication that works. So the key is being patient. Be patient with yourself, forgive yourself, love yourself, but be willing to forgive and be patient and love others during your recovery as well.
Wow. And such vital points, right? Being patient with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself, because the moment you start becoming hard on yourself as well, you start to overthink, you create all this noise and all this chatter into your mind, and then, it just doesn't get better, it just gets worse as well. George,
Right.
Tell us, what does META stand for?
Metta is a Buddhist term meaning inclusion, meaning that I'm an egalitarian by nature. So I wanted to pick a word that kind of meant that I accept everyone, to mean that no one's excluded, that no one's not able to participate or contribute. So that's why I came up with the word meta. Even though I focus on Black male mental health and Black mental health, I'll help anyone. I don't care who you are, what your political affiliation, sexual orientation, gender identification, whatever. If you need help and I can help you, I will help you. Just reach out.
Why not? Wow, well said. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you once again for listening to our show. And I know you're going to find this really valuable, please feel free to share it with your family, your friends as well. Follow us on social media. My handle is StraightTalkWithNolan. When you go onto YouTube, like and comment on this video, share with us your comment on what George has said. We'd love to hear more about what you think of it as well, and also subscribe to the channel. We are going to be sharing George's details, so make contact with him. He really is a genuine mental health advocate. If you're looking for someone to do a talk at wherever you are at any event, please reach out to George directly as well. Like I said, his contact details will be on the description here as well. So thank you once again for listening to us. We'd like to wish you well and best wishes on your journey through life as well. Thank you.